Hello and welcome back to the Making Spirituality Real podcast. Today we're continuing with our analysis of Parashara Horashastra. We are still milking chapter 3, which is very long and very abundant. I don't know if I'm going to be interested in all chapters, like I said before in previous episodes, but this one has a lot of interesting information, so we're keeping on with that. The last time we were talking about the constitution of the planets, astrologically, together with their spiritual manifestation, about things like the gender, their nature, or even the morality aspect of that. Now we're going to look more at the lunar mentions according to Vedic astrology, otherwise called the Nakshatras. And after that, there are still some further descriptions of the planets, which probably will have to go into the next episode. Definitely will have to go into the next episode because there's just so much in this chapter. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable. However, already we did go through some information that we started to skip, like last time, the whole Hindu naming thing. I didn't think it was very relevant. And I have a problem with the whole predestination thing, where I believe that there is a reason why you have a name that you have, and all is in a way fixed. So if you have had the luck to meet parents that actually named you, then it was in the stars for you, or whether you were named well. For example, I think that my parents named me very well, and they're not Hindu, they're European. It's just, I think the mother at child's birth just has this almost magical instinct, regardless of the culture that the family comes from, and the mother has that power to just name the child well. I think, in a way, if you are meant to have parents that are able to decode the language and use the right vibration, then you will just have them, and you don't need to dissect it. And in a way, it can help you in understanding what kind of vibrations do you have with certain vowels in your name. But this chapter here was more designed to appease some sort of deities. Let's say that maybe that a family has some sort of beef with one of the elements, or something didn't go well, then they're trying to fix the child's fate by appeasing the deity so that the child has a better fate and doesn't pay for the sins of its ancestors. Nevertheless, I am myself more interested in the interpretation and the understanding part of astrology or any other spiritual sciences. And I know there are astrologers that take more of the technicality, the prediction stuff, but it's not really my gig, I'm more about the understanding and the studying of the patterns behind the cosmic meaning of the particles that make up our human constitution, both physically and emotionally and spiritually. There's one more piece of information that I think I maybe could have touched on in the last chapter, in the last episode of my podcast, which is uploaded by now, so it's too late, but it's the information about how certain planets rule certain elements on Earth. Mars rules the fire element, Mercury rules the earth element, Jupiter rules the ether element, Venus rules the water element, and Saturn rules the air element, which is definitely fascinating. And looking at their mutual relationships, you will see that certain planets will do better in certain signs, even if they're not in their sign of exaltation. So Mars, being ruled by fire, will do best in Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, even though its most comfortable form there would be Aries. The irony here is that Mars and Mercury are enemies to each other, and technically Mars is exalted in Capricorn, which is of the earth element, so there is a bit of a disconnect here, but still it's interesting. So I guess Mercury would do best in Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Venus would do best in Cancer, where it's in the sign of the enemy of the moon, which is illogical, and Scorpio, where it's debilitated, and Pisces, where it's exalted, so that makes sense. And Saturn is ruled by air, so it would do best in Gemini, Libra, that makes sense, and Aquarius. So Saturn being air makes sense. And then Jupiter being the ether element, we are kind of out of zodiac signs here. So definitely, it raises some questions. And see, that's why I think that this is a bit multidimensional, the whole art here, because we are all born with the charts we are supposed to get. So even if you have Mars in the water element, where technically it would be more Venusian, so that's not compatible, you are meant to be born with a certain constitution, certain disposition. You are meant to be born with certain characteristics, even if they are not traditionally exalted or whatever, even if it's debilitated. You are meant to overcome certain things, and you are meant to be a certain type of person. So I don't really like to quantify that much, but nevertheless, it's still interesting to know that all of these planets are going to have fundamentally the qualities of these elements. So Mars is going to be fiery by nature, Mercury is going to be earthy and practical, Jupiter is going to be ether, and ether element, by the way, rules the abstract, While fire, earth, water, and air are of this earth, the ether element is what's above, is what's in the sky, it's what's conceptual and ephemeral. Some people compare the ether element to the hot breath of wind in the desert, and it's what's ephemeral, basically, what we can see on this earth. I guess you would call it the fifth sense of Mother Earth, haha. Water is Venusian, and air is Saturnian. They kind of make sense, though, because water is responsible for cleansing, and Venus is about maintenance and cleanliness, and both enjoying and spending your energy, but also making this life experience pleasurable. And Venus also rules what the body fluids that get discharged during intimate situations, and that lead to reproduction and creation of new generations. So it makes perfect sense that Venus would be linked to water as a carrier of life, basically, life on this earth. While Jupiter as ether is more the carrier of life, of our soul. It's more, how you have the myth of Prometheus, that he was made from the sand, so that we Mercury. Probably he was made from all the elements, and then the fire, as in Mars, was used to blow ether, the breath of life, breath of soul, into him. So Jupiter basically is the soul on this earth, on this physical plane. It's the in-between of the physical things. And it also makes sense with air being Saturnian, because air, again, it's ephemeral, but it rules the things that we breathe, the gases that we breathe, but also the gases that can be toxic to people. It also rules pressure, as like Saturn rules pressure, because atmospheric pressure is something that in a way holds us down like gravity. So Saturn here both grounds us, shapes us, slows us down, but also makes our life stable, which is very airy in nature. Thus Saturn being happy in 2 out of 3 air signs. Nevertheless, despite some discrepancies, I think this is very interesting, and it can give you some food for thought for how life on this planet is shaped. Anyway, now moving on to the lunar mentions. I'm just sorry for a brief interlude, but I just caught the last line of some paragraph about how serious the Vedics get with the naming, and they say here, if the initial letter of a child's name belongs to a planet without dignity, it will bring bad luck to its child's life. So, I guess the child has to be predestined for a child to have that bad luck. So it's definitely fascinating. So let's say that you have a certain letter, which I can't read because it's in Sanskrit, and the letter belongs to Saturn, and the child has Saturn in a state of debilitation as the first letter of their name. That's it's gonna make for a crappy life, apparently. Well, I guess again, it's meant to be. It's meant to be. This is the wisdom that Jupiter has, that you're meant for the life you're meant to have, even if it's a crap life. It's kind of sad, but it's the way it is. We have karmas that we have. Anyway, to read on the small paragraph about the lunar mentions. Likewise, the nakshatras too have presiding deities. Any affliction caused to natal star by way of malefic occupation, or by eclipses at birth or in a future date, can be warded off by suitable propitiation. What's this word? Propitiation to the deity concerned. Okay, propitiation, the action of appeasing a god, a spirit, or person. Okay, so appeasing the deity. Interesting. So, by the way, when they say natal star, they mean the moon lunar mention. The moon is what matters in Vedic astrology. So they basically mean that if your moon nakshatra is, if you're born during an eclipse, apparently it's a bad sign. Or let's say that the transiting eclipse is in a nakshatra of your moon, that can also be difficult for you. That you can, somehow protect yourself by praying to the deity that rules that rules the moon's lunar mention, that rules the moon's lunar mention in your chart. The other interesting paragraph here is that a malefic planet in a particular star, as in nakshatra, will yield its evil effects in a dasha related to the star. So let's say that you have Saturn in, any nakshatra, in the Saturn Mahadasha or Antardasha, you will receive the evil effects from the deity that presents, that presides over that planet. They're giving an example here. For example, if Ketu is in Kritika in the 9th house, The evil effects due to father will be given by Ketu in Sun's Dasha. Yeah, because the ruler of Kritika is Sun, and the ninth house represents the father, so you have to look at the house too. And Ketu is a malefic, and so the Sun's so the way you're looking at it is that the Sun's Dasha is in Kritika. This is when the Ketu in Kritika will give you bad results. Okay, so let me look if I see this correctly. Let's say I have Ketu in Mrigashira. So I would have to look at Mars Dasha, and it's in the ninth house too. So that would also be due to father. So adverse effects due to father and male figures can be seen during Mars Dasha by Ketu giving me adverse effects due to him. Interesting. Well, I'm not in touch with my father, so I guess it makes sense. You know, it's funny because I just finished my Mars Antardasha 2 weeks ago, not so long ago, and now I'm in Rahu Antardasha, and my father actually tried to contact me several times during the Mars Antardasha, and he was kind of pissing me off, so I would just ignore him. Okay, here they're giving Kritika examples. Propitiation of fire god will counter the possible evil. Well, then I guess I should pray to the moon for warding of the evil effects from my father. Alternatively, Lord Ganesha, representing Ketu, may also be pleased suitably. Well, I'm in Ketu Mahadasha, so I guess I should pray to Lord Ganesha, huh? Yeah, because the Vedics, they recommend by praying to Lord Ganesha as the representation of Jupiter to appeasing negative effects of Ketu in one's Dasha. Well, I will start taking this seriously since I still have some years of Ketu Dasha going. Anyway, not prolonging any further, let's start looking at the deities of the lunar mansions and talking about them in detail. I know there are people who do hour-long videos on each deity, but I want to keep it brief so that people can understand the basics. What helps actually is looking at these deities as living people with a certain story and see their story recreated in your own human life in some smaller form, because that's how humans' life work. We kind of are like the dolls of the deities, like diminished versions, especially if it's the moon nakshatra. Anyway, I guess I should have a bit of an introduction regarding how this list is going to look. I am not going to go through the whole list one by one and talking about each deity for hours, because you can find plenty of them on YouTube and even on Wikipedia. Like literally, if you Google the deity, you will find its whole life story. And if I start to do it on the podcast, it would take 10 hours. And it's something that you can really find easily yourself. But there are certain interesting things in this list that have caught my attention that I want to mention relative to the nakshatras, and something that I think is not talked enough about in the community, because the names of these deities, they are everywhere. If you have joined the Vedic forums on Facebook, which I'm part of many of, you have probably heard of most of these deities by now, because people talk about them all the time, if you have any knowledge of Vedic astrology. But some things in this book are things that I just have never heard of in the community, and this is the ones that I wanted to touch on by looking at that list. So I will go through the deities one by one. If they are typical, then I will skip on them. So the deity of Ashwini is the Ashwini Kumara twins. Everyone knows that. Everyone who's into Vedic astrology, at least. The deity of Bharani is Yama, the god of death. The deity of Kritika is Agni. We know that. Now we're going to stop at Rohini. Why? Because here there's an interesting thing happening in pair with Uttara Ashada. So I know partially this happened in this book because of a typesetting error with the translator. When they were translating from the Sanskrit, they made an error and they moved some. The English speaking translator didn't have the knowledge of Vedic astrology, so they moved some deities, by some line, and it resulted in an error in print, which I can get around that because I know Vedic astrology, but nevertheless, it shows us a very interesting thing about the nature of Brahma as a deity. So on this list, traditionally we have Rohini Nakshatra ruled by Brahma, the creator. But interestingly enough, on the list we also have Brahma showing the rulership over the nakshatra of Uttarashada, which is much, much further down the list. And upon doing some research and contemplating on that, I have actually found that Brahma in Uttarashada rules more so the Abhijit aspect of Uttarashada, so the non-existent unique construct that exists within the skies, making Uttarashada the only one that's lonely on Earth, right? So In this way, we can see Brahma kind of incarnating through two nakshatras. In Rohini, where it's the aspect of Brahma where Rohini is his favorite daughter, who is completely linked with Brahma, completely, in a way, dependent on him, but happily dependent because she's protected. And I believe actually in Uttarashada is the aspect of Brahma that is the father, because traditionally the ruler of Uttarashada is the Vishwadevas, which are representative of its concept of invincibility, you know. But you know, having Brahma reside in Abhijit, in a way, shows that this is where Rohini's cosmic father is located. There are certain Vedic astrologers, such as Vigdikara, that have determined a list of certain degrees where Uttarashada actually moves to Abhijit, and he has pinpointed in his analysis, if you look at his videos about Uttarashada, that some very, very famous models, for example, had like Venuses or very prominent placements in that Abhijit portion of the sky ruled by Brahma, which made them very beautiful and very popular and outstanding in society. So it's interesting how you have to look at closely at the degrees of your Uttarashada, because you just might have that spark of Brahma next to the Vishwadevas. So definitely it is interesting how, in a way, Rohini and Uttarashada are this pair, you know. So I think it could be interesting in a romantic relationship, especially if Rohini is the woman and the man is Uttarashada, that could be kind of, you know, the perfect pairing of the cosmic father and his attached child. I wonder if any of my viewers have known romantic pairings like that, but I would like to see that. The deity of Mrigashira is Chandra, the moon itself. Oh yes, another thing that is good to show right now. Certain lunar mentions, certain nakshatras are ruled and they are presided for by the planets themselves, which makes them extra powerful and definitely makes it very interesting. So here, this is the first moment when this happens, where we can see the nakshatra of Mrigashira be ruled directly by the moon. So the moon's lunar nature, the moon's feminine nature, the moon's fickle, responsive, easily swayed, easily scared, yet emotionally dependent nature is represented in Mrigashira. But also the moon's beauty and femininity, making this nakshatra a very feminine one. Quite naturally, very abundant in feminine juices. And probably very mothering also, very nurturing, very much interested in family and in progeny, because the moon rules also that aspect, you know, being the wife of Jupiter, being the ultimate father. The moon is the mother. So in that way, you're gonna have Mrigashira Nakshatra embody the ultimate vibrations of motherhood and femininity, and connect with nature, connecting with building a nest and with housing. And it's the same with Brahma, really. You know, he's a fundamental force of creation, and yet we associate him with the two nakshatras of both Rohini and Uttarashada, where he shares it with the Vishwadevas. So, you know, compared to other deities such as the Ashwini Kumaras or Agni, that they're kind of less central, even though they're also powerful in their own way. Definitely, it is interesting. The deity of Ardra is Rudra, the aspect of Shiva, the destroyer. So, just as Rohini and Uttarashada are the aspect of Vishnu that is creative in Brahma, Ardra is the aspect of Vishnu that is Shiva, that is destructive and that is accusatory. The ruler of Punarvasu is Aditi, the mother of gods. Not really gonna stop here because it's kind of, you know, something you can Google easily. Now, the interesting one here is that the deity of next nakshatra, Pushya, is Brihaspati, which is Jupiter himself. So if you have planets in Pushya nakshatra, you are the avatar of the planet Jupiter on this earth. And having myself moon in Pushya, conjunct Mars, honestly, I find it to be so true. The one thing that always interested me in this life was learning and then teaching and guiding and protecting, and this is something that was so visible in me since I was a child. And that nature of Jupiter was always so strong for me. Even though technically Pushya is ruled by Saturn, it is still the avatar of Brihaspati, and that can that can express itself in various ways, because this earth is littered with Pushyas, with many avatars of Brihaspati. So definitely interesting how if you have Moon in Pushya, you are Jupiter embodied. These Jupiterian qualities are going to be very strong in you. Now again, the other interesting thing here is that Ashlesha, technically the deity of Ashlesha is Sarpas, which is ruled to its, which is linked with its snake-like nature. But here in this book, Ashlesha is linked to be the embodiment of Rahu, Rahu's snaky nature. So if you have Moon in Ashlesha, you essentially are going to be very Rahuvian in nature, and that makes sense, because Rahu represents illusion and represents teasing. And just to show you how funny that works in real life and how real and tangible that is, my husband, I have a dog who is an Ashlesha sun dog, and that dog loves play. And the favorite things that he likes to do is escape from us and kind of deceive us and snake around our legs. And this is, what Rahu is. Rahu is temptation and illusion. And he's honestly very fast. He's very good at escaping us. Technically, he's very small, so he should be easy to catch. But no, sorry, he's like very... he's very sneaky in nature, Ashlesha, and very good at making us feel like he's going to go somewhere else. He goes somewhere else. Sometimes it feels like he disappears for a second, and this basically pertains to this Rahu illusory nature, the nature of being able to cast the illusion and sustain that illusion. So it's before reading this book, I've never seen Ashlesha Nakshatra being shown as the embodiment of Rahu, but that makes perfect sense. The deity of Maga is Pitris, which rules our ancestors, but very interestingly enough here, it says that Maga Nakshatra has qualities of the sun. So in a way, if you have Moon in Maga Nakshatra, you will be an embodiment of the sun itself through your ancestors. The deity of Pura Falguni is Aryaman. Some also say Bhaga, some say both. The book says Aryaman. I'm going to leave it at that. And it's the same with Uttara Falguni. It also shares the deities of Aryaman and Bhaga with Pura Falguni. But interestingly enough, the book here points out to Uttara Falguni also being ruled by the sun. So just like Maga Nakshatra, Uttara Falguni is going to have these qualities of the sun itself. These two nakshatras, Maga and Uttara Falguni, are basically the embodiment of the sun. Since Pura Falguni here is in the book linked more with Aryaman, I'm going to guess here that the qualities of sun express themselves in Uttara Falguni through Bhaga. So if you're an Uttara Falguni moon, then you are going to be basically the embodiment of the sun through the expression of Bhaga as a deity. And Bhaga is a Vedic god of wealth and prosperity, which makes sense because these natives tend to be really blessed and have an easy way with pretty much everything. So they basically receive a lot of wealth as a result of the labor of their ancestors. They receive a lot of unearned wealth, which is also what sun is, right? Because the sun, being the king, is the king because of his lineage. He is king not by election, because that's more Saturnian. The idea of election, he is king by blood. So again, just like Brahma splits himself between Rohini, his beloved daughter, and Uttarashada, the father, the sun splits himself between Maga, the guest of the ancestors, so that we kind of more the nobility of character to the ancestors, and Uttara Falguni, the merit and unearned wealth passed down through the ancestors. The deity of Hasta is Savitri, which is also a form of the sun god, by the way, but it's more of a lesser, a more trickster form, Hasta being ruled by the moon. Looking at this, actually, I think that Uttara Falguni is like the ultimate expression of the sun being not only a sun-ruled nakshatra, but also the expression of the sun. So if you're Uttara Falguni, you are probably the luckiest person in the world, especially if you're a man, which can sometimes kind of go awry, right, if someone doesn't really appreciate their blessings. The deity of Chitra is Vishwakarma. I'm not going to get into that because it's not anything that you haven't heard of before. The deity of Swati is Vayu, god of wind, which again is something that you can find easily. The deity of Vishaka is very much debated. Most people divide the rulership of Vishaka between Indra and Agni, the same god that rules Kritika, where Indra is the king of the gods. Here Indra divides himself between Jyeshta and Vishaka, where Jyeshta is ruled solely by the victory aspect of Indra, and Vishaka is supposed to have the the other element that is mixed with Agni, with the fiery passion. However, some people, I've seen many of them, again, Vigdikara made a whole video about that, but I also did my own reading and my own research. Some people believe that instead of both Indra and Agni being two separate deities, Indrani, the deity for Vishaka is instead Indrani. And because the names are so similar, some people link it as one entity, while some people separate it in two. Goddess Indrani actually is the queen consort of Lord Indra himself. So kind of Vishaka is the wife of Jeshta in a way, So she is, his wife. So then the Vishaka, especially if it's in a woman's chart, is going to be the fierce wife of Indra, because if you're a wife of Indra, you have a good position, and female deities are always supposed to be more in the nurturing and mothering and compassionate and beautiful energy, as opposed to the male deities that are more wrathful and conquering in their mythology. The goddess Indrani was known for her exceptional and exquisite beauty, and because of her beauty and her exceptional sensuality, she was desired by many men, but the one who won her was Indra, because he's the king of the gods and because he's the best. So basically, Vishaka is the kind of feminine principle that says, well, you have to be the best man, the most conquering man, the one who's on top of the chain to be able to even deserve her. So in a way, these women can be terrifying to many. In a way, I would say that this nakshatra is better for women than for men. Well, it is my sun and ascendant, so... and it makes sense, by the way, because, my husband has very significant placements in Jeshta himself. It's his ascendant ruler. So it makes sense that if I already would be with somebody, and he's my first serious life partner, actually, so it makes sense that as a woman so strong in Vishaka, I would also pick a man so strong in Jeshta. Many sources also cite the many blessings that come from being the goddess Indrani, because as being the wife of Indra, she is believed to be the most fortunate woman, having snagged such a good husband, basically. So basically, Indrani, the deity of Vishaka, makes her the queen of the gods. The deity for Anuradha is Mitra, which everyone knows. And I think we already pretty much covered what comes later, which is Jeshta, ruled by Indra, the king of the gods. So Indra and Vishaka are kind of the king and queen. The deity of Mula is Niriti, which, again, everyone knows. The deity of Purva Ashada is Apas, the water deity. We already covered Uttara Ashada when we were talking about the Brahma and the Vishvadevas. The deity of Shravana is Vishnu himself, the creator of the universe, which I guess makes Shravana native so psychic, because here we can see the three creators picking certain nakshatras to incarnate. So Brahma picking Rohini and Uttarashada, Shiva picking Ardra as his destruction, and Vishnu picking Shravana as the one that sustains the creation of the universe by being responsive to all the calls that nature throws at her. So you can see the Holy Trinity being in those three nakshatras. The role of the Nishta is the Vasus, the 8 gods responsible for its main talents. The deity of Shatabisha is Varuna. The deity of Purvabhadrapada is Ajakepada. The book calls the same deity Ajacharana, but it's the same one. Well, it is meant to be a fierce form of Shiva, the destroyer too, but again, it's more of a form. It's not really the same thing. It's not really the same thing as the pure form of Shiva in Ardra. The deity of Uttarabhadrapada is the serpent of the deep, the Ahirbudnya, and the deity of Revati is Pushan or Pushan, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And then we have the Abhijit Nakshatra, which is associated again with Brahma, but also even with Vishnu and the Vishvadevas in some sources. So you can see how connected Uttara Ashada and Abhijit as its consort are connected. Actually, it's like in a way they are one, which I guess explains the solitary nature of Uttara Ashada, because it already feels like it has everything and doesn't need anyone. Being so connected to Abhijit through Brahma, Vishnu, and the Vishvadevas, it's like these nakshatras have the entire universe with them and inside them, pointing to their amazing amount of self-reliance. Anyway, this has turned out to be a very long video, and the point of this was really to cover, the the parts of it that were more interesting, pointing to certain nakshatras being avatars of certain planets or deities. And in a way, if you have got this in your chart, you can think of yourself as, special, with an asterisk, because everyone is an aspect of, because everyone is an aspect of the divine. But having these nakshatras as your moon placement can make you more prone to embodying the qualities of these rays of the planets. Let's say your moon is Miksha, you're gonna be very lunar. Let's say your moon's in Ardra, you're gonna be very much like the Shiva, very argumentative, very destructive. Let's say your moon is in Pusha, you're gonna be very Jupiterian, very prone towards teaching and providing for everybody. Let's say your moon is in Ashlesha, you're gonna be very Rahuvian in nature, very tricky, able to cast illusions, able to deceive and wiggle your way out. Let's say your moon is in Mag or Uttara Falguni, you're gonna be very solar in nature. Let's say that your moon is in Uttarashada or Rohini, you're going to be like Brahma, very much in the energy of the creator, depending on which spectrum do you pick. Let's say your moon is in Shravana, you're going to be very much like Vishnu, very much like the universe constantly creating itself. So I think that I just give you a quick list of all those that were the most interesting. I think the one that personally fascinated me the most is Ashlesha being the birth of Rahu. Like, I've already heard of Pusha being the avatar of Brihaspati. This is not a fact that is not mentioned. This is not an uncommon fact. If you read in the Vedic community, you will hear about Pusha being the avatar of Brihaspati. People know that. But Ashlesha being the birth of Rahu is extremely fascinating. I guess Uttara Falguni and Maga being the birth of Sun are kind of less surprising, even though it's also novelty, because they are both so abundant and so blessed, so blessed just through the fact of being. They don't have to work for what they have, it just comes to them. So it was maybe a bit less surprising, but the whole Ashlesha thing definitely shows something very fascinating. This makes me think of the video by the Hidden Octave that he made on Ashlesha Nakshatra. And especially if it's one of your big three, I recommend that you watch his video. This video talked about how this nakshatra is primarily associated with abuse in household and abusive family situations, especially with the mother or their parents also. So in a way it makes sense, because the Rahu and Ketu as the nodes of the moon, where the moon rules nurturing and families, Rahu can show this element of greed, abuse, and being mentally troubled, having psychological complexities that it takes you time to work out. That's why some people also associate Rahu with astrologers, because as astrologers are the ones who also use psychology and things like that to be able to decipher the complexities of human motivations, both on an emotional level and on a spiritual level. So Ashlesha being the one ruled by Rahu, or being the embodiment of Rahu, is going to be the one who suffers the most from those psychological complexities and who suffers the most from those afflictions, So in a way, having a moon in Ashlesha is having like moon conjunct Rahu by default. It kind of sucks for you. Sorry guys, but it's just, it's or like a very close moon Rahu conjunction, But it also shows that if you have the pain, you have the antidote, you have the ability to heal both yourself and others, showing moon in Ashlesha to be potentially a very good doctor, a very good healer. I would say that someone instead who has moon in Nikshira, or benefics in Nikshira Nakshatra, is somebody who, being the embodiment of the moon, can have a good family, who can have instead the good version of the nurturing. Meanwhile, if your moon is in Ashlesha, you're gonna get the the Rahu version of it, which is not necessarily the most pleasant one. Meanwhile, with your moon in Pusha, you just receive a good education, less of the nurturing vibe and more of the general protection and wisdom regardless of your financial status. And I can tell you definitely for me, as a moon in Pusha, that was the case. I had a very good education. I was always one of the top students. I speak several languages. English is my first language. And I'm pretty sure if I sat down to Sanskrit, I could figure it out too. I just don't have, it's not really on the list for me right now because I have so many other things to do. But it's true that despite my family not being very wealthy, I had this lack of being provided for so I could study and more like expand my view of the world. Because Jupiter is not just about knowing the facts. Jupiter is about understanding the vastness of the universe and Earth as being a part of that. And isn't that what this podcast, my practice, is about? That I explain to others because I'm so good at it. But why am I good at it? Because I had the luck to be able to an environment that fostered that understanding. Jupiter is even capable of using religion in its more traditional form as a tool for transforming dogma and doctrine into true wisdom. So again, if you have been born with any of these nakshatras, then you're just going to have to go through certain life experiences. And for all my Ashlesha moons, I am so sorry for you. But you picked that, your soul picked that for a reason, and you can also be the one that delivers a lot of healing to others, through your pain. Anyway, on that optimistic haha note, let's finish this episode. It has become indecently long, but we had a lot to cover, and we will be back to milk chapter 3 more next time. See you guys.